strange beast to try to understand. I do a lot, and I have to explain what it is I do in 20 minutes, so we'll see how well I do. If you look up here, there's a lot of terms that describe my work. How many of you have heard of some of these words like alternate reality games, 360 design, experience design, transmedia, web series? Anybody familiar with any of these terms? A few, awesome. So I'm going to try to not explain any of those terms because that's boring. I'm going to talk to you about the journey of how I got where I am today. And so I need your help because the people back there might not hear me say next slide. So when I say next, you say slide. Next. Slide. Awesome. Okay, so I use a lot of different terms to try to explain what I do. If you see on the left, those are different things that have appeared on my business card, and they're more or less don't really encapsulate what it is I do. But can you see that writing? It's really hard on the right to see, but these are all the things that I can write and have written. I can write just about anything. As you can see, press releases, press kits, first-person narratives, smut. I love to write smut. What this all means is I mostly do what I'm doing at that table there, and that's answering emails, okay? But everything about what I do, being able to write across platforms, doesn't make me a transmedia storyteller. It makes me a jack of all trades, right? It makes me a generalist. What makes me a transmedia storyteller is to tell one giant story using any medium at my disposal, any genre, in any industry. So I produce live events as part of a story world. I produce games, short stories, but they all are a cohesive part of one giant story. So I need your help again. Next. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. When I was a kid, I loved writing stories. You see at the side there, that was me doing a shoujo manga when I was 15. It was very silly and very girly, and everybody fell in love. And so I was really interested in writing traditional stories, but I had these crazy ideas as a kid. Could anything be part of a story? Could you walk into a room and that room be part of the narrative? Could you open the calendar in that room and understand the characters within that room? Could you grab a leaf, and could that leaf be part of the narrative? And as you enter into that story, are you now a character of that story, of that fictional world? Now you have to remember this was the 80s, and we didn't have video games like we did now. We had Castlevania, Pac-Man, but none of, the kind of virtual reality things that are happening now. So this was all before that. So now let's go a little forward with what I did with all these grandiose ideas, okay? So next. Okay, so what I did was I decided that nobody was ever gonna give me permission to make these kind of crazy stories, so I got married at 20 and I had kids. And for many years, I just wrote stories in secret and changed diapers and breastfed. And then when I was 32, I decided that I was actually gonna do something with these crazy ideas, and I went to OCAD University, and that's me in 2006. And what's interesting about 2006, it was the same time a word was being coined. And we're gonna get to that word now. So next. Awesome, you guys are great. So this is, at 2006, the word transmedia was being coined. And I'm gonna give you a really quick overview of what that means. So trans means across. So it's a story using media that goes across media. But trans doesn't mean just across, it also means beyond. That it is beyond the media. That when people come to the story, they bring something. The audience, the readers, they engage, they participate, they make the story bigger by their involvement. And that's what transmedia is. So transmedia was taking place way before the word was coined in 2006. How many people have heard of Blair Witch? Blair Witch? Okay, how many people watched the movie? A few. How many people didn't watch the movie but knew it was groundbreaking because of the viral campaigns and the marketing and so forth? So you heard of the legend of Blair Witch without ever having to see the movie. You heard that there was found footage, you heard that it was groundbreaking, that it introduced terms like viral marketing. Well, Blair Witch is considered one of the quintessential transmedia properties, and that was in 1999. And the thing about that is transmedia predates that. Religion is transmedia. You have characters. You have an environment that's immersive that you walk into. The people who are engaged with religion bring something to the narrative by being active participants, right? So transmedia is a very, very old way of doing things that when modernity happened, we started taking stories and putting them in novels and compartmentalizing them and making them separate. Transmedia goes back to that where everything's narrative again. Okay, so AI was a famous movie people might be familiar with. What you might not be familiar with was there was an alternate reality game that was produced called The Beast that many of the people who are the forefront of transmedia today participated in that game as characters, as participants, as audience, and they loved it so much they became the leaders in transmedia. Another famous example is Lonely Girl. Is it Lonely Girl 16 or Lonely Girl 15? How many people have heard of Lonely Girl? So Lonely Girl was a web series that started and web series means a series that's distributed on YouTube or online as opposed to TV. So it started off as this vlog of a girl talking to people, and people thought it was a real girl. And it wasn't until halfway through the experience they realized she was actually a character. And people got mad. They felt they were hoaxed. She was a fake, right? So we're going to go to the next slide. Sorry, I screwed it up. Okay, next one. So first wave transmedia usually has to do with viral marketing, has a big ad dollars behind it. Found footage is part of it. There's this flux between reality, what's not reality. It's the idea of dispersed narrative, what I talked about. Anything and everything can be part of the story, but it's dispersed all over the place, and it's up to the audience to bring these elements together to make a cohesive narrative in their mind. It's pervasive in that it runs 24/7. It's immersive in that you actually physically can enter the story. And you could do that at live events or just participation in online forums, okay? And there's this idea of hoaxing, right? That fiction and reality are in flux, and that's a problem. People who did the hoaxing back in the day have mostly disavowed from it because it caused legal problems. People get mad when they feel like they've been lied to, that the person that they've been engaging with is actually a fictional character. And part of the alternate reality games for a long time was this idea of this is not a game. This is not a game meant we're not going to reveal who we are. This is a reality we've projected, and there is no Arthur. There is no production company. It's a reality. That caused a lot of problems, okay? So, next. So what did I do? I decided when I discovered transmedia in about 2009, that people were actually doing that thing that I always wanted to do, I decided to enter some of these games, to become a character, to really try to understand it from the inside out, to see how these models worked. So one of the big games that I joined was Conspiracy for Good. Conspiracy for Good was produced by Tim Crane, who was the producer of Heroes and creator of Heroes, and Nokia funded it. And as you can see, I played this game and I became the most hardcore player who ever courted hard. And I entered the game like I was an actual character. And by my participation in entering the game as a character, I was co-creating the fiction with the production team. And I did it so well, and they loved me so much. They flew me to London, England for the live events. And you can see me there at the top, where I'm trying to engage people into the story by saying, do we give the documents to the bad guy, or do we not give the documents to the bad guy? And this is the kind of thing I do, is I facilitate giant people into fictional action. If it looks a lot like play pretend, because that's exactly what it is, okay? Another really famous example is ZTO. ZTO was done in Toronto last summer, and it's done by the Mission Business guys, and it was a serialized theatrical event in which you entered the story. So I entered the story as, a character, as a participant, as an audience member. But oftentimes I would cross the curtain, and you can see me in the middle slide. I'm playing a medic in which I'm interviewing participants at Nuit Blanche about do they have possibly the zombie virus or not. So there's a bleed you can see with people who are audience members and people who are the writers. This kind of has completely dissolved, okay? So we're gonna really rally, because I feel like there's been kind of a petering of the slide part. So I'm gonna do it really rambunctious. Next! Awesome. Okay. So then I tried to decide, can I actually do this as a career? Can I have a business in this crazy form of storytelling? So we're going to go really quickly to the next slide. Okay, so the great thing about Conspiracy for Good is I met two of my writing partners for this project, The Karada. One of the writers was the producer of the Conspiracy Good ARG, the alternate reality game, Tom Lilleholm, and the other partner was Tim Crane's assistant and right-hand man at the time, Jim Martin, who worked on Heroes. And we decided we were going to make a native transmedia TV property, right? And at the time, we thought this was going to be a really sellable idea, to have TV that has these experiences wrapped around it, preceding the launch of the series, and in between each episode and in between seasons, and we had a really ambitious plan. We had, second screen app and mobile apps and second screen ideas. This was before the word second screen came out. We had alternate reality games, we had live events, we had graphic novels, we had serialized novels, and we had a lot of fun play. And we did have a lot of interest in Hollywood. We had a lot of people, a lot of meetings where there was a lot of smiles and people were very interested, but we didn't feel like that was getting us anywhere, and I wanted to sweeten the pot. So we decided to partner with Wattpad. Everybody have heard of Wattpad by now? So we decided to partner with Wattpad where they would feature us as one of the featured writers, and we wrote a prequel novel called All Your Fates. So this is where we say, next. Awesome. Okay, and then this is just to show you how silly we got. We had really crazy ideas of incorporating AR and people on the streets and solving puzzles with narrative clips and so forth. Next slide. So All Your Fates was a serialized novel that we did. We are close to 1 million reads. For Act 2, we pulled in guest writers who are really known as pioneers in transmedia and Webseries. And we've always been in the top 20 of sci-fi, and often the top 10. And the idea was we were going to show that we got 2 minutes. Oh my God! Okay, we were going to show that we had a built-in audience, and that would sweeten the pot for. Now I got 2 minutes, and all I'm thinking is 2 minutes. But the problem with it was there's a lack of analytics, even though we have a lot of numbers, and this is 1 million reads that's aggregate, including all the chapters, right? It's not 1 million per chapter. But the problem is we don't know who our audience is. We can't go to a TV production company and say, well, we have, a fan base of your target demographic. And also, it doesn't really have those hicks for monetization that we were hoping it would have. Okay, next slide. Now I have to explain what I'm doing now. I don't think I have time. Okay, we're gonna skip this one. Skip work with no pants, skip work with no pants. Skip it. Okay, so this is where I started to realize that these games are unsustainable. The problem is the audience doesn't have time to be in your story 24/7. They don't have time to engage in this way that we thought back in the day that this was going to revolutionize storytelling. So I needed something that was going to be very accessible, have a low barrier to entry, that is very shareable, that's really engaging, get people really, to buy in a very fast and easy way. So I wanted to find the Bazooka Joe Gum of storytelling. And it took me a long time to realize the Bazooka Joe Gum of storytelling is Bazooka Go Jum. Next slide. Okay, skip it. So this brings me to Spy Horse. So Spy Horse is a fake television show from the late 70s to early 80s. And part of it is we're doing We're just doing trading cards, 69 characters in trading cards. And the idea is you'd be able to look at the cards and reverse engineer the entire narrative by looking at the back of it. I play Glock T's. I changed my weapon of choice. My actual weapon choice is herpes. And so we're having a lot of fun with making these cards. And what we're doing is we're doing a series of shoots in Toronto, in LA, and Vancouver where anybody can be a spy whore. Anyone in here can join us to be a spy whore, and we'll make a little card. And the idea is we'll be able to use this to leverage that we have an audience. We have people who are engaged, who love this concept. So then we'll take it to the next level once we get funding, in which will be a web series in which every episode will be previously on Spy Horrors and just be clips from this fake television show that never happened. So next slide. So this is me. I'm actually Carrie Cutforth now. I just ended my relationship with my husband for 20 years, so carriecutforth.com. You can check me out at queenspay.com. I do essays on this kind of transmedia stuff at storyhorizon.com. You can check out spyhorrors.com and me on Twitter. And anybody can come up to me afterwards to ask more questions. Okay, she's giving me I'm off the stage.